It's often said that the church denying marriage to people of the same sex is blatant discrimination. Is it? Dr. Christopher West here, the Theology, the Body Guy. Let's take a look. We're continuing our series looking at questions in my book, Good News About Sex and Marriage, and we're in the chapter on same-sex matters. If you are wanting to follow along, you can turn to page 149 if you have the book. If you don't have the book, you can check out the link below. Discrimination is a word that has become confused in its meaning. It's become a buzzword indiscriminately linked with injustice. We have forgotten in the modern world that there is just discrimination. We discriminate all the time. And we should discriminate. What do we mean? To discriminate means to make distinctions, right? Meaningful distinctions. In fact, the very word philosophy, love of wisdom, one of the best definitions I've ever heard of the word philosophy, is the art of making meaningful distinctions. An orange is not an apple. An apple is not an orange. To call an orange a fruit is correct. To call an apple a fruit is correct. But to call an orange an apple or an apple an orange, we are using terms indiscriminately. We are meant to discriminate, and it is just and proper to discriminate when we are recognizing meaningful distinctions. For example, it is unjust discrimination for the state to deny blind people the right to vote. But it is just discrimination of the state to deny blind people driver's licenses. Why? Because seeing, the ability to see, has some legitimate bearing on the safety of driving, right? So that would be just discrimination. Here's another example. It is unjust discrimination for the state to prevent a 12-year-old from buying a bottle of water at the local convenience store. But it is just discrimination of the state to prevent a 12-year-old from buying a bottle of whiskey at the local liquor store, right? Because here the distinction between water and liquor and the age of the person matters, right? So, is denying marriage to those of the same sex just or unjust discrimination? The question at hand is this: does the sexual difference have any real bearing on marriage? If the sexual difference has no bearing whatsoever on marriage, then it is unjust discrimination to say people of the same sex can't marry. But if the sexual difference bears meaningfully on the very purpose and goal and meaning of marriage itself, well, then it is just discrimination to say people of the same sex can't do what marriage requires. Every civilization that has flourished has understood that marriage is the commitment to responsible genital intercourse for the sake of the next generation. Genital intercourse is simply impossible for those who have the same genitals. It is impossible for a man to unite his genitals with another man's genitals. It is impossible for a woman to unite her genitals with another woman's genitals. Two ova do not generate the next generation. Two sperm do not generate the next generation. Only a sperm and an egg can generate the next generation. When marriage is understood, as it always has been, to be the commitment to responsible genital intercourse for the sake of the next generation, then the real problem is not thinking discriminately about marriage. The real problem is thinking indiscriminately about marriage. In the end, the idea that two people of the same sex could marry each other is based on a fundamental lie that the sexual difference doesn't matter to marriage. Lord, please open our eyes to the true goodness and beauty of marriage as you created it to be. Help us to follow Christ's own words. Haven't you read that in the beginning God made them male and female and called the two to become one flesh? Help us to return to that original plan. Indeed, this is why Christ came into the world. There are all kinds of sexual confusions in the world. There are all manner of sexual distortions in the world. In the beginning, it was not so. And the good news of the gospel is that Christ came into the world to restore creation to the purity of its origins. And if we say yes to that work of grace in our own lives, Christ will bring to completion the work he has begun in us. I have so much more to share with you, so much more to unpack for you about this work of God redeeming our sexuality, restoring that original plan in our lives. I encourage you to learn more by checking out the links below to our patron community and also to our online and in-person courses. Until next time, may our eyes continue to be opened to the splendor of the theology of our bodies.